Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Hope you're doing well today. It is January 9th, and today is Tuesday. I'm good for the date today. Oh man, and it's back to rainy conditions here where I am. A little bit of sunshine, now we're back to rain. Interesting, like the rainiest winter season, even though it's, just barely started, but we don't typically get so much rain back to back in the winter time. Especially with we had a little flurry situation real quick before it turned to rain, but it's been some really cloudy conditions, strangely, to my remembrance. But that's neither here nor there. I hope you're getting around just fine at the start of this new week if you have to be out and about, and cozy and dry inside when you do get back in, for sure. I want to start really quick, and I'm going to really try to make this as quick as possible, but I have a small correction, kind of retraction, but more just like a correction or inflection of something that I said yesterday regarding the scripture that I referred to about Joshua and his confrontation with the commander of the army of the Lord, which was, you could consider it was Archangel Michael, more or less. So what I said, I spoke about how, I referenced that scripture and said how the commander said to Joshua, the place where you stand is holy ground. I want to make a small change to that because, first of all, I misspoke only by a hair, but it's the hair of my mistake that makes all the difference. And before I speak on it, I want to first shout out to Pastor Mike Walrun at First Corinthian Baptist Church in Harlem, New York, which is where I made my church home when I lived in New York. Because, first of all, he's like one of the greatest theologians that I've ever come across personally, and that I honestly would bet in the whole world. That, now, you can argue with your mama, but that's just how I feels about it, okay? And many people would agree. He just has a genius perspective of the Bible text and even how to, integrate it in everyday life and things. Like some of the concepts that he opened my mind to, like the one I'm speaking of now, really were life-changing for me as to how I saw myself in the eyes of God, and how I reconsidered how God saw me. Big change. And also shout out to his wife, Reverend Lakeisha Walrun, who is also brilliant as well. They run an amazing House of God in Harlem, New York, where they don't just do church, they actually serve the community 7 days a week. And I'm so proud to have been associated with that space in spirit and in truth. But I had to say that and give it a shout out to him, because I dare not want to make it seem like this was my conceptualization of this text. It's something that my eyes were opened up to. And basically, so the verse that I was referring to was Joshua 5, verse 15. So chapter 5, verse 15 in the Bible, right? And what is happening is he's being confronted as he's about to ultimately take up his position of authority, transferring or leading the charge to guide the Israelites into the promised land, from where they were in the wilderness, now moving into the space that was promised to them to inhabit after having sat on it for 40 years when they were supposed to have been headed that way immediately. Now was the time for him to carry the baton passed down by Moses and to lead the people ahead. So the army, the confrontation here is basically, one of a challenge of preparedness and really like a self-awareness and self-assertion of who you are in this moment. Like, do you know who you are? Do you know the mission you're about to undertake? And the reason why that passage means so much to me is because it's an inflection from the same charge that was given to Moses, which was Joshua's predecessor, right? Whom he was charged to take the baton from. And it's almost like the same verse, but the inflection of just one word makes all the difference, and that is the word ground. And that's why I felt like I needed to come back and really, first of all, for those that know the scripture, you would know that I misspoke and I added that word where that is not where it was placed. Ground was the reference that was made to Moses when he was engaged in the burning bush in his own moment of self-assertion, or not self-assertion, what's the right word, like not kind of initiation, but he had already been initiated at that point. It was really more so like anointing. There it is, like his engagement with the Spirit and the anointing of his purpose. And that exchange with Moses and the bush, which we can more or less consider is the angel of the Lord, or God in a spiritual form, grasping his attention, calling him to his own attention. He's told after the exchange to take off your shoes because where you stand is holy ground. And that gives reference to the space being sanctified and sacred, and the association with place as to what is holy, what is again sacred, what is special, what is anointed. Yes, Moses in the place of that space, but it was more emphasis on the space being the ground. Now, fast forward 4 chapters later, 4 generations later, as they had to wait to have their entrance into their beginning of their entrance into the promised land, the charge of that angel was for Joshua to take off his shoes because where he stands is holy, no ground. And at first the inflection is so subtle that you would miss it and think, well, it's the same directive, but not really. And this is what Pastor Mike opened my eyes to, because the advancement of the charge speaks to, as I used it yesterday, intentionally, but I said the wrong word. I added the word. The inflection of the charge for Joshua was that wherever his presence was, made that place holy. So to wherever end of the earth he were to go to, because he's there, that space is sanctified, that space is set apart, that place is sacred. That's a big difference, because say what happens when you disconnect from a space that's sanctified as holy? What happens when you go to a place that isn't, as was the charge with Moses? And not to say, it's any desecration to Moses, because he's the predecessor, right? So he still is the wiser and the elder of this charge. But I'm saying this to say that in the transition from timeline to timeline, it's clear that the inflection and directive of the Spirit has even evolved as we are being ordained and called to do so. Where Moses' association with sacredness and holiness, even as it was a reflection unto God, was connected to place and space, the New Age charge and inflection and reflection of sacredness and holiness unto God was connected to identity and presence. And I feel like that's a great disparity that we get to receive for ourselves today as a method of a means of empowerment, to know that perhaps what it was for our grandfathers, even our mothers and fathers, to deem as holy and sacred, and what is purposeful, and what is even practical, but certainly what is anointed, in the spiritual sense and in the reflection of truth, could have changed even a generation or two or three later to mean something completely almost the same, but somehow a little bit different for us, and that we can absorb that difference with no discharge from the legacy or the relevance and even reverence of what was, but knowing that the difference itself is reverent for us to carry that baton and now a new timeline and intentionally in a new one, even more forwardly speaking, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But what I'm trying to get to, basically in a nutshell, is, as I misspoke, I didn't misspeak on how the scripture came up for me yesterday. That was on point. But that just one simple word could change everything in the tone or even the definition of a directive between the past, the present, and even the future. And it's probably even great for me to say in this moment that as we are empowering those, because I ain't no young girl no more, so I'm now raising the next generation, and we are now given the charge to empower our future leaders, who are absolutely the leaders of now, already shaping our reality, whether we realize it or not, that we give way to those inflections and evolution for them as well, to express themselves in a way that may not have been as palatable for us, or as practical even in some ways for us to connect to or align with, but make all the difference for the charge that they carry and for the futuristic perspective that they are already privy to. So as it was, as it is, as it always shall be, is that evolution is eternal. So given all of that into account, still speaking more profoundly to the now and how it resonated yesterday, and knowing that your sacredness, your, in a practical sense, specialness, is not connected to anyone, anything, and certainly not any place. Where you go, you already anoint that space because of the intention that you embody, the motivation that you carry, the integrity that you stand on. And that was the point of you being, me bigging you up yesterday, so that because for a lot of us, especially in my generation, that's been a hard connection to bridge from the considered a Moses era to some degree, where you would need to worship in the temple to even be considered worthy of reverence to God, to where the Israelites were displaced in the wilderness and had to make that space holy and sacred to some degree. But still, there was still a looming dependency, if you will, throughout that time, where they still didn't find their value and their worthiness without that physical and tangible, well, not quite tangible, but sort of tangible presence of God, so much so that they built a temple and they built a tabernacle in that wilderness. Well, we are the tabernacle. You are the temple, the Spirit of God and universe, even as grand as you can embody it, as I spoke yesterday, you being the conduit and the conductor in one embodiment, is upon you and within you. So as I'm saying about Joshua, it's not a matter of the ground, the space that you walk in, the places that you enter, who gives you access, who doesn't, the people that you're associated with, where you've been, or even where you're going. It's a matter of your identity and your awareness of how significant, how invaluable and yet priceless your identity is, not just to this realm of reality that we all inhabit, but certainly as a reflective and projective source, reflective and projective force of source, or source of force, whichever you want to see it as, like you're powerful beyond containment. So, all right. So I hope I made that make sense. I'll post the scriptures below, but for your own reference point, it's Joshua 5:15, which is the scripture I cited yesterday, or the story I referenced yesterday. And the story of Moses is Exodus 3:5. Of course, I would probably suggest you read all of chapter 5 and all of chapter 3 in Exodus for context. But those were the two scriptures that I was comparing and contrasting. All right, so you can see what I'm saying for yourself. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to keep it quick since I kind of talked your ear off a little bit. Let's see what we got. All right, we got the Three of Wands, which is about having great expectations, really seeing the vastness of potential due to you as a result of what you have projected from the previous Two of Wands. I always connect those two cards together because you really don't get to the three without that two. That some type of plan or action or work or intention, motivation had to be invested for you to really get, unless you're just, delusional, but even the delusion would serve as the point of investment in the Two of Wands to believe that there is anything to expect to be coming into you, like any great expectation whatsoever. In the context of all that I just spoke of, if you can conceive of such a high vibrational identity, such as one where literally you're ordained to bless every space that you enter into, then you certainly would have the expectation to be that magnifying force for reciprocity. So no matter where you are, he could be at the end of the earth or in the desert, and there still would be an expectation for the spirit to be to reside in your presence or with your presence, or it be exuded from the projection of your presence. And so therefore you would have no reason otherwise but to expect great things. So that's what I'm getting from it with the Three of Wands, and again, in connection to all that I felt compelled to clear up today. This could also be like the expectation of, considering we're talking about Moses and Joshua, people that are on divine assignment. This could be the expectation for the resources to carry out that covenant, to carry out that responsibility or that charge. Maybe something is coming to you that you've been waiting quite a while for, or that you feel it may be a missing piece or a missing link to allow you to fully work in your fullest capacity, to really carry out your vision as he's kind of taken an expanded outlook to really carry out the vision of your purpose the way that you see it. And maybe perhaps things will come in exactly the way that you have manifested them to do so. You certainly, I feel, with the Three of Wands, have the reason and right to have a great expectation for that. But I also feel guided to say to be open-minded to however they get to come in, things come in, and to be willing and ready to activate that reproduction of whatever the resource or material may be for the highest good. So for instance, when Moses took on his charge, he didn't know if he had known all that it would entail, and that he'd be stuck in the wilderness with a whole bunch of complaining folk for 40 years and not even be able to enter into the promised land. He did get to see it, but he didn't get to go in, at least not in that body form or whatever. But if he had known that, who knows if he would have actually been a yes to the challenge and to the charge. If Joshua would have known that when they entered when they crossed over, I believe it was the Jordan that they crossed over, or was it the Red? Yeah, they first crossed the Red Sea, but he crossed the Jordan. So when they crossed over the Jordan, if he would have known that on the other side, they still would have needed to battle or to fight, or just that the charge would have been so great, so great of an undertaking, he may not have been a yes to that journey either, but there's something about you, from what I said yesterday to what I'm saying now, there's something about you that has made you unique for this order. There's something that nobody else can do. And because you've been ordained in such a highly exalted way, then you get to expect, just as the leaders of old and even our ancestors that we may, have a direct connection to, you get to be an expectation that you'll have everything that you'll need to be successful, to carry it out successfully, no matter what the challenge or the charge ahead. All right, so let me keep going because the incense is halfway done. Yeah, look at that balance with the Four of Wands. Yeah, balance, harmony, and maybe that is the achievement of that promised land life, whether it be you going to it or it coming to you by way of opportunity, advancement, inspiration, partnership, whatever it is that's needed for you to do what only you can do best is due to you now. I just heard, yeah, and that's a progression from the 3 to the 4. So like the wait is over is what I'm hearing. You may still feel like you're in waiting because certain things haven't materialized just yet. But what I'm feeling is that how can I say it? It's like the faith has already garnered the manifestation, like you just looking out in expectation and faithfulness and having put the work from that Two of Wands and into the action behind the faith has already made it so. With the Four of Wands, it's like it's just as good as done already, like, how can I say that better? Yeah, with the High Priestess, let me get another one next to the High Priestess. Oh, that's a lot, but look at that, done. There's no need for you to even contemplate the new beginning and how you may fare about it, or if it's even coming. You see what came first? The most exalted wand and inspiration that there is with the Ace of Wands. So if there's even any question about whether or not you've done enough, you've proven yourself worthy enough, you are enough, to obtain, to even have the audacity for an expectation of balance and harmony and peace and promise, as it was uniquely envisioned, or it was uniquely transmitted to you in vision. You can release that anxiety now. It's absolutely no need. Like, this is the alignment, this was the devotion. There's no need to worry at all. Yeah, look at this. King of Pentacles. Whatever it is, this is spiritual devotion, and this is the physical manifestation, and this is, the most high valued king in the deck. He's not worried about a dime or a nickel or a penny for that matter. Everything is set. He's made wise investments. He has been empowered to know how to make the money work for him. At this point, he knows how to hold down a household. He's reliable in his financial his financial frequency is reliable. It's stable, it's secure, it's not lacking anything. It's not definitely not up at night wondering how you going to pay the bills, or if if you did the right thing, if you made the right investment, if you're connected to the right people. Like, this is a different life here. And I feel like I started with that comparison between Moses and Joshua, as I said, because they were connected in culture, right? But as I said, there were two different timelines, one of which Moses never actually got to step into. So he was given the vision and given the the knowledge and wisdom of the promise to be, but he didn't inhabit it. Like, he wasn't one that actually got to step foot in that physical frequency to experience it firsthand. It was Joshua that did that. So it's like the ways in which you have, I feel like it's a call for us to kind of like release ourselves to some degree from the grips of tradition and conventions that may or may not truly, or at least holistically, apply to us. So whereas like our folks were more prone to finding a stable job and securing their future by way of certain investments such as your 401k, or just having longevity in one company and having a retirement fund or a pension or whatever, which we know is we're definitely not stepping into that, anybody in the present day for the most part. But it doesn't mean there was anything wrong with those ideals, but the shift has drastically occurred in the way that what was once secure and a sure shot is just not that anymore. And there may be a disparity in understanding that that difference, between, say, yourself and your elders, or people that are even close to you but have been indoctrinated into that more traditional or conventional perspective of life, because you don't even have to be old to think that way. That's just how we've been conditioned to see life. And even as society and life as we knew it is transforming right before our eyes, there's still, just for the sake of comfort, is the propensity to want to reach back for those old old ideals, to feel some sense of security and stability where there just may not be that anymore. So I feel like this is just us being okay with being ushered into a reality in which, think of the disparity between Moses and Joshua as I explained it, where you make the opportunity. Was Moses being connected to a place, whether it had been Egypt where he had come from, or his cultural foundations, was not what made him, was not what ultimately ordained him to be the chosen one for that path. It was something special within him. And Joshua got to carry out that charge in real time firsthand, because he didn't have a place of association. He was going to some place that he couldn't even, he had no former association with. But it was what was inside of him that was ordained special from a spiritual perspective, that he had to then materialize by way of his self-assuredness and awareness to bring to fruition in a physical sense, whereas now, because of his audacity to believe in what was instilled in him and what was affirmed, because of that is what ultimately guided them all, not just him, but a whole people, a whole culture, to a new life. And against what would have been the norm because once upon a time when they were supposed to have crossed over, he was one of the few, one of the two, as a matter of fact, that was willing to speak in favor of going ahead, even in fear of what might lie ahead, because there were giants there and they felt like, the people would squash them whole, if they tried to take the land as they were directed to initially. He was one of the few, and now he's getting to carry out as the leader of many, simply on account of the confidence that was instilled in him, not from former experience. So that's what I'm getting to. It's like you may not have any point of reference, or definitely any evidence, because because what you're doing hasn't been done before. Got it. You are one of one. That's what I'm trying to get to. So if you're looking for affirmation by way of evidence, or even by way of understanding from those that may love you very much, but don't have a point of, just don't have the point of reference to really support your vision, you could miss an opportunity to experience a land where you release yourself from all of that density, moving forward, where you don't need to feel associated with a presence or a measurement of stability or security, because it's you that creates that reality wherever you go. But if you're not willing to take that leap of faith and that step to submit yourself to that that call, whatever it may be, it could be a missed opportunity, is ultimately what I'm saying. You're being called into something that hasn't been done before, maybe hasn't been seen before, and you perhaps already know what that is. Maybe it's something you've been holding close to your chest with the high priestess. And I'm here to tell you that how unconventional and untraditional it may seem or feel in comparison to whatever it is that you could even compare it to, which is not much. This is a confirmation that it's absolutely leading you not only to that space of comfort and security that you yearn for, that you desire to have, but also to a point of prosperity in a very independent expression, as with the King of Pentacles, where, as I said, it won't even matter what anybody else has to say about it, because your prosperity, your results, your receipts, maybe quite literally speak for themselves. Yeah, here it is, wish fulfillment with the Nine of Cups. Something that you've already kind of had your mind and your heart set on, maybe even been working on to some degree, and it is everything that you anticipated to be, and probably more than that. I could probably bet my life that it's more than that. There's something mystical about this magic here that you possess, or that you are perhaps, I don't want to say resistant to release, but maybe a bit reserved. There it is. Yeah, with the King of Pentacles, like you may be a bit reserved to release or even unleash this, I don't know, what do we call it? Like these gifts, yeah, with the King of Pentacles. Yeah. Maybe fear of being judged or misunderstood, or not having your needs met to jump out in such an unconventional way. Like, God forbid you jump out there and do something different and you fall flat on your face, or it's not all that you anticipated it would be, or there's some perhaps some anxiety for disappointment maybe, but it's nothing negative on this board. We didn't start negatively, and I feel, let's see what that is. Oh, look at this. This is the Death card and the female counterpart. Yeah, this is transformative energy here. It's not reading as death in the final way, like in finality of energy. It's transformative here. And the transformation is exactly what I was saying a little bit earlier about this newfound independence. That's what both of these cards represent. The Nine of Cups and the Nine of Pentacles. Someone that spiritually, both are spiritual inflections, but it's someone that has, and look at that, it's almost like a cross-pollination. Oh, this is interesting. Hold on. Between the King of Pentacles and the Cups, and then the Nine of Pentacles and the High Priestess. Yeah, for me, it's just highlighting independence and it be, as I was saying, like just being a new energy of a new, not a new energy, but a new assertiveness of sovereignty. That's what it is. Because I spoke about the High Priestess and what she's given. You know, this is somebody that's so deeply affirmed by God that she definitely ain't looking to be told how great she is otherwise. Like if she's not measuring up to Supreme Source as she sees it and Supreme Self as she is devoted to it, nothing else really matters. And the King of Pentacles is high value in such a way, especially amongst all the other kings, that he's materially affluent on account of his decision making and his groundedness. You know, like ain't no other king really effing with him in terms of having the actual physical receipts and measurements, which we live in a 3D world, right, of his success, you know? So it's like, what's really effing with that in the grand scheme of things? You know, definitely not conventions and traditions per se when you followed the path that may have been less of those things and still found yourself in a positive posture, you know, like a positive presence in some way, shape, or form. Like it's been ordained, you know, it's you were tried and tested to answer the call to do something different beyond what anyone. And look, that's kind of what this is here, like this independence, this strong independence. And the Death card to me is just giving, I feel like it's just giving, it's bringing an end to the doubt of this potential here, like what exactly you're capable of on your own with the resources that you have on hand, with spiritual support, with, you know, ethereal affirmation, maybe perhaps with none else, you know, in the physical form in terms of affirmation. But it's like being so self-assured that I don't know how to say it. It's just like they literally like live in their own worlds, you know, like and that's hard to do in this realm of existence, you know, because we're always being told what to think and what to feel. And imagine a life where your philosophy reigns supreme. And there's more I want to say about this Death card in the midst of this. But I think the biggest standout is the fact that it's in the midst of both of these energies. I just got like having how can I say it, like I want to say defeated death. Maybe so. Yeah, here's a celebration card here with the Three of Cups, which could be your and angels and ancestors celebrating for. It's like transcended. That's what this is. It's not just transformation, it's transcendence. You don't even live on the vibration of mortality holistically, if that makes sense. Like, does that make sense? It's like you hear, you know how the saying is, like, you're in this world but not, is it like yeah, like you're in this world but not of it. A lot of times I would hear that when you talk about like the city, like you're in the city or in the hood but not of the hood type of thing. It's like you live in this world but you're not consumed. That's what this really is. It's like truly being chosen, being a cut above not just the rest, but the most, because many are very much so consumed or at least, what's the right word? Not just consumed, but, you know, there's kind of like a fixation on mortality. If it wasn't for that, there would virtually be fearlessness in the land, right? And so that's what this energy is. It's like being dependent of the chain, like the confinement of mortality, you know, and particularly in the traditional and conventional sense. And that, how can I say this? Like that chain, that limitation has been projected in a multitude of ways, not just from an intimate perspective, but even beyond that, you know, for us to always be thoughtful about how much time we have left for our own safety and security, whether it be on a practical level or you know, even beyond that, like our actual mortality. And then don't get me started on a religious aspect too, you know what I mean? But it's something here that I'm getting that I can't quite say as eloquently as I feel it, but that's the transcendence and the transformation here, where it's like you have all that you need, you're spiritually content. So it's like, even if there was a matter of death today or tomorrow, it would be of no consequence to your spirit, because there's so much, I don't know, like there's so much, what's the right word? Like so much something in your presence. I'm needing a word right there. There's so much. I keep hearing prayer in your presence, but that's too practical. It's not what I mean. There's so much presence in your presence, if that makes sense. Like there's literally so much gifting in your present experience that's what you become consumed by, like the overwhelm of contentment and joy and security and stability and harmony and balance. Like those are the things that consume the psyche and consume your creativity, which leaves no room for this middleman here holistically, for you to fixate and be agitated by the possibility of a demise. Yeah, look, the star card. What's under there? Just the star. Okay. Yeah, it's like there's something here. I want to say it better, but I feel it's so strong. And then now the star card here is just giving more way to what this exaltation that I'm feeling. It's like death does not become you, you know, like it doesn't consume you, it doesn't become you. And you what we got here? Yeah, like this Hermit card, and then the Chariot is just like continuous forward motion, mastery of life, maybe mastery of your destiny. Oh, you're a master of your destiny. Yes, I love that. And it's been ordained for it to be that way. You know, we've spent so much time being conditioned otherwise and relenting our power to others that would want to be masters over us, quite unjustifiably, of course, but, and like I said, in a lot of ways, with our own consent, you know, at least subconsciously, if not actually consciously. So it's been hard to kind of break out, nothing is ever coincidence. When you consider Moses to Joshua, from going from being connected to a place and even the presence of God in a way that you can conceptualize in a physical form, to now having to embody the belief that you are the conception, that's a great disparity of reality for one to have to you know, and I'm saying have to because usually I say get to, because it is a privilege, of course, but for it to be a matter of life and death as it is here, for you to almost have to be able to digest in order to live it as such, you know, like that's a great charge. It does incite a great deal of will to have the audacity to be receptive, because the hermit card can be a teacher too, to that level of knowledge, that high level of knowledge and wisdom, to even believe that you have the authority to be master over anything, least of all yourself, you know, because whether you look at it from a practical perspective or a religious perspective, which in our world things kind of mesh all together in some ways, don't they? You're kind of conditioned to surrender your sovereignty over to an external power. Certainly not to assume it in your own authority and right. But here's the balance, the harmony, is that there gets to be a co-creativity overall. ALL and AWE, if you can get into that. And that's what this energy is giving me here. It's like the angels are happy because somebody's finally getting it. And that somebody could be me, you, or the collective of consciousness that's finally being elevated to this higher frequency to understand the authority that they already possess and the value of themselves as the gift unto the universe, with the gifts of the universe inside, you know, here with the star card, and being willing to absorb that knowledge and that wisdom and then express it physically, not just like, oh, because you know, there are things that we know, even intuitively so, that we just sit on. I know I can speak for myself, like, okay, that sounds real good. But it's one thing to kind of receive the knowledge. It's one thing to be the knowledge. You know, that's what this is giving me here. And that is like that, spiritual surrender, so to speak, is what is solidifying material success, because that's what this Chariot card is giving me. And it also speaks to the protection part, because you know, sometimes in a practical sense, this could be the police, that you are not only guided to this new wave of reality and truth and understanding of self and perhaps of divine in tandem, but you're also protected to live that out. That is something. That's why I knew it was something deeper here. And it's still something deeper still, because this death card is still screaming out to me, but it's not in a way, like it gives me no cause for alarm whatsoever. That's how I know it's something deeper here, with how the weight of death maybe perhaps is being lifted off of our shoulders, out of our consciousness, out of our creativity, so that we don't live in despair anymore, or desperation, or fear, you know, of our expiration date, because the evolution of reality is so that perhaps the promised land for us is some expression of eternal life, like I said here, continuous forward movement, effervescent illumination, something here like angelic presence here and ancestral presence here. It's like they're all over this trying to make some message very clear, not just so it, for knowledge's sake, but for life's sake, for us to really express that, like walk with that knowledge and that truth, embody it. It's like, consider like higher education, and I'm not saying this against anyone that does or does not have it or aspire to it, but when you've been educated a certain way, you have, like, put it plainly like this: when you know better, you do better. Plain and simple. So I don't even have to go there. It's like knowing a certain thing to be true will automatically impress upon you to express that vitality in a much higher frequency, express that force in a higher frequency. And I guess I will go back and say it because it makes it more practical. Like, you say you've been educated, maybe not necessarily in higher education, but even on a certain subject, you may speak about that subject more confidently, or you may even, maybe you're more knowledgeable of a certain craft, let's say, or a talent or something. You will express that more boldly because you know what you're doing. You know how to maneuver it. You know how to move around it. It doesn't scare you. It doesn't intimidate you with this death card. It doesn't intimidate you. The knowledge that you would be willing to express based on what you've learned flows freely and without inhibition because you're sure of it. Like kind of how they say with public speaking, you speak more fluidly when you're knowledgeable of the topic. That's one of the principles. And that's the energy here. It's like when you know that there's a certain power force that works within you and that's never leaving you, even if the world would fall apart around you, that it would be consistent and eternal with your being. You walk a little bit taller, like the cherry card, like you got top flight security, as I said yesterday, encamped all around you. Like you have the approval and the affirmation of the divine in your back pocket, like, bam, this is who sent me type of vibe. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't even be a question against opposition or interference or anything of the sort, because you would walk with a certain confidence and courage that it just like it's impenetrable, and it's irrevocable to some. I'm trying to find a word for it. It's like it is eternal, and it's powerful. It's not just empowering, it's powerful. So I feel like that's what we're being called to, this like saving grace, this saving knowledge of self, so that we can like the inhabitants of this so-called promised land. I think it rests on that, on our sheer audacity to know that we are privy to that space, privy to that presence. There it is. That's what it is. The thing that keeps us out, as it did with the folks in Moses' time that had to sit out for 40 years, is exactly that audacity of worthiness, of knowing, like it all comes full circle because, like I said, of knowing that you take the presence and you ordain the space no matter what it is. So therefore it can never be without you and you can never be without it. And like I said from the beginning with the Three of Wands, you have the expectation for everything to kind of gravitate in your orbit because of that magnificent magnification. I hope this is making sense. Yeah, and it's eternal. That's what I'm getting here. Like, it's to be managed without end. You know, it doesn't have to end. The only challenge is for us to manage it within the world that conditions us to suppress this reality, to feel like we're less than, to feel like we're always juggling, that we're not enough, we don't do enough, we don't have enough. How dare we even think that we have, entitlement to such a high vibrational lifestyle? Like, what have you done to be privy to such joy and balance and harmony? Like, have you worked your fingers to the bone? Have you gotten hella degrees in special education, advanced education? Have you put in hella years at a job? Have you devoted yourself to one particular organization or religion or creed or culture? Like, always juggling our own identity. And when it comes down to it, it's like you can scrap all of that. The only management here is your own magnificence. That's the only responsibility here. And everybody else that may have something to say for or against really doesn't matter. Can I just say it just like that? Like, and I mean that, for or against is really no matter. It's between you and your own divine alignment. Hangman here, and this is the enlightenment that will keep you from feeling stuck and stagnant. And I'm also feeling like it's the expectation for a continual renewal. That's what it is, of enlightenment, so that the knowledge, the wisdom, because like I said, it never gets old. So I can finish my thought. But like I said, it's like some things that you come to an enlightenment of, right? Even internally, especially when you're operating in such a capacity as this, whomever I'm speaking to or with. You come to certain enlightenments within yourself, and it's like, can that be true? Is that, like, you almost question, like, where did that come from? Why? But it feels so true, it feels so real, it must have some relevance, And it can easily get lost in the shuffle as to the lower vibration that I'm speaking of, because it can't be proven. Like I said, it can't be compared, it can't be confirmed, it can't be proven. In many ways, it can be more denied than it can be confirmed by conventional and traditional inflections, right? If you're looking back at what Moses did as Joshua, you're not going to have a hell of a lot of point of reference for what you're about to do. But here I'm getting that it's like a continuous regeneration of the enlightenment, not just that you received initially to put you in this position of self-awareness and assuredness, but to help you to stay there. So in this hangman, in this particular sense, is not stuck, meaning he don't know how to move forward, or he can't, he's not able to get down and make a move. It's, to me, is giving the refreshing of the vitality of wisdom and truth, enlightenment, in a word, that you need to keep you focused on this journey. Remember, I was saying, like, you'll have everything that you need to stay in a high expectation for more, because that's the only way you're going to continuously magnify and manifest beyond what after Joshua got to one point past the Jordan, there was then the battle, and then taking the land, and then cultivating the land, and then protecting the land. Like, each round goes higher and higher, and after you finish one, after you complete one assignment, then it's on to the next, and hopefully all in joy and in harmony and balance, as it's alluded to here with the Four of Wands, but certainly something more to expand in, so that you're always learning, you're always positioning yourself to be a conduit of new information, new energy, new vitality. It never stops. And in the moment that you're wishing that it should or could, is probably the moment when your assignment is over. You know, so this is something actually to look forward to. And I was listening to a message by Neff, the great angel goddess. I forgot, she kind of changed her name around a little bit. And she was saying that one time she had engaged an elder, a person older than her, when she was much younger, but she asked her what was the most significant or the best thing that you've learned in all your years. And that elder told her, I'm still learning. Like she's still at it. Even in her older age, there's still yet more to know, more to grow, more to gain. And that we get to celebrate that reality. Perhaps that is as I was saying, the eternal life of the matter of our spirit man, is that we never stop evolving. That's amazing. That's amazing. And I feel like the disparity is that she was saying that changed her perspective a great deal, because it helped her to take some of the pressure off of herself, even at that young, ripe age, to feel like she had finally arrived, or learned the lessons, or learned all she needed to know. And it does take a bit of pressure off of life when I'm saying it the way that I'm saying it here, to not feel like you have some finish line to make it to before you can consider yourself accomplished, or dare I say worthy, that you already are. And that the presence of the infinite exchange between spirit and self is the gift in itself. Otherwise, you're dead. You're literally walking dead. And the independence is not depreciated in the process whatsoever. It's just continuously enhanced. That's awesome. I'm grateful for this message. It felt a little hard to get out, but the good ones always do, for me anyway. So I hope that you find some value in it, in the way that I'm connecting to it in this moment, and that it's even better and deeper for you beyond what I've actually said. And hopefully when I see it back, it might open up yet more, which it usually does for me personally. But in any event, I thank you for listening and watching and considering this range of transmission from the scriptures, and certainly with no exclusion to anyone that doesn't believe in Christianity or have that come from or connection, but just me transmitting an idea, that I hope you could connect to. And certainly your patience with how I kind of, fumbled about this message, or at least it felt that way. Usually it doesn't really turn out to be that way. But yeah, in any event, take what resonates and surely leave what does not. And from now until next time, as always, I leave you with peace.